Football is back. Week 1 is here, but before Sunday, we need wide receiver rankings for week 1 of the fantasy football season. Welcome to Ian in Fantasy Football, where I combine industry-leading data, Vegas sportsbooks, and expert analysis to provide you with optimal weekly rankings for the utmost accuracy when setting your weekly lineups in your fantasy football league. I'm writing this on Wednesday night for Friday's video. Expect more videos later every week for the other unit groupings, wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end. To start off, the top 45 wide receivers for week 1, full PPR, we have Tyreek Hill. He's the only player in this tier. He's at 97.5. Nobody else is even close. He's the undisputed S tier. There he is. We're not going to spend a lot of time on these top guys. We have a lot to get through. Up next, Mon-Ra. 83.5 over. Huge point total slated against the Rams. No Aaron Donald. Wheels up. Next up, Justin Jefferson. 83.5 over-under to start the season for Jay Jettas. He faces a below-average pass defense in the Giants. We've said too much already. Let's go to the next guy. CeeDee Lamb. 84.5 over-under for the second highest paid dude. CeeDee faces the dreaded Browns defense, but do not fear, he'll get home. To start off the next tier, the 70s. A.J. Brown. 70.5 over-under has the Eagles' #1 target a bit low this week, but never fear. His matchup against the Packers is going to be a high-scoring duel between offenses. Packers were league average against wide receivers last year. His upside holds him here. Jamar Chase is next. 66.5 receiving yards for Chase. Look, this stinks. Expectations will need to be adjusted until the season is underway. When we get new data on him and Burrow, he's still Jamar Chase. Chase the upside. Puka Nacua is next. 71.5 over-under for LA's rising star. This matchup is a heater. Expect a lot of air yards with this shootout. Puka's going to be front and center. Nico Collins is next. 67.5 over-under is a crime. I know we're not even halfway, and I've already been upset with some of these lines, but it's what you're here for, okay? Colts secondary is garbage. Nico is going to dominate. Take the over. Mike Evans is next. 68.5 receiving is tough to swallow. From ADP, you're not upset, but this is an instance in which I take the over for Evans this week. His matchup couldn't be sweeter against Washington, who is dead last against the pass. Up next is Devontae Adams. 72.5 receiving for the veteran. Chargers were among bottom 5 when facing wide receivers last year. Devontae knows how to take advantage. The Gardner Minshew is tossing him the pigskin. I'm a bit low on Adams, respectfully. Cooper Kupp. If 68.5 yards for Mr. 2000 isn't an indication with Puka's projection that Matt Stafford's going to absolutely pepper these two this week, I don't know what else you want. Garrett Wilson's next. 68.5 total yards for Garrett Wilson. Tough matchup in the Niners this week. Hopefully the connection is there with A-Rod. What we expect. Up next, ErvinandM.com. ErvinandM.com is my company my best friend and I started in 2020. We literally make everything ourselves by hand. We have earrings, rings, necklaces, bracelets, tie clips, apparel, and more. Over a dozen curated gemstones and 100 handcrafted products. If you need a gift or something special for yourself, use the promo code in the description, find something you love, and buy it today. Now back to the video. Up next, Jalen Waddle. 63.5 total against the Jags. I'm going to go ahead and say what I did for Tyreek. It applies to Waddle here too. One of the rare overs we would be comfortable with since the Jags are just serving up such a feast for the Fins. Next up, Michael Pittman. 66.5 for Richardson's target hog. He's not the most efficient #1. He's a bit low this week, but it's appropriate given the race against Houston. Going to be a lot of air yards and scoring in this game where the Colts are underdogs. Next up, Marvin Harrison. 59.5 over-under. Look, I know this isn't what you want to see with the guy that you most likely paid a high price for, but the matchup is a limiting factor. Buffalo in Buffalo. Hang in there. Chris Olave is next. 63.5 receiving line for New Orleans Golden Boy. Only thing stopping a bigger showing is the pace of this terrible game. It's going to be a slow game. The line shows what we expect as far as opportunity here. Drake London's next. We're stuck with 61.5 for London this week for the same reason we're stuck with low receiving lines for Olave, Deontay, and Pickens. The game is going to be just as slow with the same lack of opportunities on either side, and Steelers D is no joke. Malik Neighbors is next. 61.5. This game sucks. Darnold sucks. Daniel Jones sucks. Neighbors has the potential, but his offense is holding him back. DJ Moore's next. 63.5 for Caleb Williams, number one target. They get an okay game total with the Titans at 44.5. Middle of the road for scoring for the matchups this week. They're favorites. He'll get there. Devonta Smith is next. 60.5 receiving for Smith, facing the Packers' average secondary. The new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, is likely to get Smith and AJ more opportunities if you can believe that. I'd be okay going with the over with him this week. Deebo Samuel's next. 46 receiving, but 60.5 total. So the usual work out of the backfield should prop him up similarly to Ayuk. If Ayuk was practiced, we'd have Deebo a bit lower. The matchup is as bad as it gets facing the Jets. Next week will be better. DK Metcalf is next. 48.5 for Geno's number one. I know it sucks, but this just comes down to opportunity again. Terrible game, terrible pace, terrible opportunity. Amari Cooper's next. Only 55.5 receiving at 4.5 receptions. This tells us to expect high variance until we know what to expect with Watson. We know Cooper can go for 100, but we've seen him burnt to a crisp if Watson isn't on point. Dallas doesn't make it any easier. Without Branch, I think the quarterback's the only question here. Stephon Diggs is next. 60.5. We already talked about Nico being primed to obliterate the Colts' horrible secondary. This applies here as well. I'm not too high on Diggs this season without seeing him in action, but he could exceed expectations based off matchup alone. And for the final guy in this 60s tier, I know it's loaded with a lot of guys, but these are the numbers, boys. 90s, 80s for yards, 70s for yards, 60s for yards. You got a lot of 60s options. Terry McLaurin's next. 16.5 receiving for Scary Terry. The Jaden Daniels connection isn't the question here. It's once again the pace of this game in Tampa. They'll likely trail. That's good for the air yards, but the game total tells us this one's going to be slow at only 42 points. 60 sounds fair. Start the next tier, the 50s. Ayuk. At 26, 54.5 yards feels low. And it is. The Jets aren't what you want for your wide receiver matchup, being the number one secondary. This is going to stop more drives for Purdy, and there's a lot of mouths to feed. Chris Godwin's next. 57.5 for Godwin. Mike was at 68. I think Godwin can exceed expectations this week for the same reason as Evans. The Colts secondary is last in the league. Give me the over. T. Higgins is next. This is not where you want to be making tough decisions. There's no line to share here. This is where I'd like to situate him compared to the others in the tier, but we'll have to keep an eye on the hamstring. We need more information. Tank Dell's next. On the other side of that situation, the trio in Houston should eat. His line set at 55.5 yards allows me to reiterate, matchup is king. And even though Dell is the definition of high variance, this is the opportunity to be high rather than low. George Pickens is next. 53.5 receiving line for George. This game sucks. Steelers offense sucks. The high variance will likely continue based on the line and how low the game total is. Ouch. Christian Kirk is next. If 55.5 sounds gross, it's because it is. Even with this high-scoring game and the Jags trailing, Trevor has too many targets to hit up. These guys will all get the same treatment as the Packers unit. Too much to spread the ball around. Deontay Johnson's next. 53.5 receiving, facing a grueling division rival to open the season. Bryce and company should be better. This game total in line tells us that no receivers involved on either team are going to make an impact. Keenan Allen's next. 49.5 for Caleb Williams, presumed number 2. I know it stinks. It's week 1. He's old. He's hurt. But he should improve from here. And the last guy in this tier, in the 50s, Calvin Ridley. Set at 56.5 yards, Ridley's line tells us his opportunity is limited with Levis, and perhaps what's more, we need more data to see the targets and connection there. He's talented. We just need to see it. Start off the next tier. The 40s, receiving over and under. Jaden Reed. I know what you're going to say. 42.5 yards. Jordan Love is going to spread the ball around. Philly's the 3rd worst against the pass. The only thing hurting this wide receiver unit is the shared targets. Next up, Courtland Sutton. 48.5 receiving is probably better than you expected, given how poorly the Broncos are projected to perform in this first matchup with Seattle. The same thing applies here. Bad, and more bad. DeAndre Hopkins is next. 47.5 behind Ridley. This sucks for Nuck. Dude is an unbelievable talent, but the offense sucks, and I don't know how it gets better for Hop. To boost, he's limited at practice. Not good. Joshua Palmer's next. 48.5 total yards for the Chargers veteran. I think he could surprise us this year and be more productive than the community thinks. That being said, horrible game total, uncertainty with Herbert's health. I expect him to rise, though. Rome Odunze. Only thing impacting Rome's line is the lack of opportunity here. At 44.5 yards for this line, Caleb Williams has so many weapons to target. Expect him to rise, but week 1, temper expectations. Khalil Shakur. We don't know who's going to be the beneficiary of these wide receiver unit changes. History tells us Allen will rely on his tight ends. Until we get some current data, 44.5 over and under for sports books. How efficient he's going to be. JSN's next. 43.5 for poor JSN. I'll say it again. Terrible game total, terrible teams. What do you expect? The line says it all. Romeo Dobbs. The volatility continues. At only 40.5 yards, once again, we have to understand that Love is spreading the ball. To start the last tier, this is sub 40s. This is rest in peace. Week 1 matchup. Jameson Williams. 39.5 receiving line for Williams. We know he plays a clear out role and will be volatile. But you want good players and good offenses, and banking on his 3 receptions hurts. But if you're searching this low, his upside is the bright spot in this dark, dark place. Next to last, Kobe Myers. Yikes. This line's terrible. His quarterback is below average, and he's playing behind Adams. The total is one of the lowest, and they're underdogs at 35.5 over. Rest in peace, Myers. And for the last guy, bottom of the barrel, Donkey. RIP, if you need this one to hit big for you to win your first matchup, it's the end of the line here. His total's at 37.5. He's your very last option. Send up a prayer if you're somehow here. There it is. There's your top 45 wide receivers for week 1. And I sincerely hope this helps everyone watching. Comment below what you think of this week's rankings. Are you scared? Are you going to crush? Let me know. Thank you for your time. And if you want to support the channel so I can keep making videos like these, subscribe and turn on post notifications so you can see all the videos each week before submitting your lineups. It's free, so it's a good value. And if you want to support me, check out my store at ervinandm.com. I have 2 passions, fantasy football and small business. We're a 2-man show at A&M. We take pride in the quality and craftsmanship of our products. There's no better way to support me than by buying a gift or something special for yourself. Everything is handcrafted from limited stock here in North Carolina. We ship anywhere in the U.S. Don't forget to use the promo code in the description. Thanks again. If you're still with me, that's the video. See you in the comments. in the next video.